Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, the Niti Aayog held a crucial meeting with states on the crucial issue of the MSP, which is, of course, part of the announcements that was made by the Finance Minister in the budget. Joining us now to discuss that is the Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog, Mr. Rajiv Kumar. Mr. Kumar, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. You held a meeting today, sir, with 22 state governments on what to do about the issue of MSP. How do you take forward and execute the promise that was made by the Finance Minister in the budget? What has been the feedback that is coming from states, sir, and when can we expect the next steps on this matter?
So, the meeting today was, I think, one of the most useful meetings that I have chaired for a long time, because it was a very focused meeting to look at the various options for implementing the MSP properly.
Right.
Now, this is a very important thing, Shireen, which is that the MSP has been announced, the commitment has been given that this will be the A2 plus FLN to 1.5, 50% more than the total cost. That's the commitment given. But what has been seen across the country is that apart from wheat and paddy and sugarcane,
yes,
the 21 other commodities where MSPs have been announced, the farmers don't receive that.
Yes.
Farmers don't get the benefit of that.
Yes.
So here the focus therefore was entirely on the implementation of the MSPs. We had put forward 3 options for the states to consider. These had been sent to them, and these had come up with after discussions in Niti Aayog and the Ministry of Agriculture.
What are the options,
and also
sir?
involvement of some of the options are, one is called the Market Assurance Scheme,
okay,
which is a variation of what we already have as a price stabilization scheme, except with a very big difference that under the Market Assurance Scheme as being proposed, the state governments can move right away and start procurement without having to wait for a permission from the central government.
Okay.
So that the crucial time lost will not be lost any longer. And there are other features of that scheme. That's the first one. The second one is what is called the Price Deficiency Payment Scheme.
Yes.
Which is really the term used for Bhavantar, which has been used in
Madhya Pradesh,
piloted in Madhya Pradesh, and we've learned from some lessons from there, and so. But that's essentially that scheme, and this is basically that if the market price drops below the MSP,
yes,
and if the modal price is below the MSP, then they get paid the deficiency right directly into their bank accounts. And the third one is called the PPSS, which is Public-Private Procurement Stabilization Scheme,
okay,
which is where we want to get the traders, impaneled traders, recognized to be procuring the commodities at the minimum at the MSP announced, by giving them a set of incentives which could include a commission which will be arrived at by due process, a transparent process.
So are we given to understand,
some
sir,
other parameters.
Are we given to understand that you're likely to take forward one of these 3 options? What's the feedback from the state? What seems to be the most viable? Or will you take forward each of these proposals that you just articulated for us?
That's the decision one has to take. That's where we are. That is what we will discuss. It could be that all the 3 schemes can be like a bouquet, and the states have the option to use them. They could run in parallel, or they could be specific. There could be some scheme, one of them which is crop specific, depending on what are the characteristic features of that particular crop. But that in short, Shireen, that decision has not been taken. This is something that we will mull over.
Okay.
The states have given us their preferences, their priorities, etc., which we will look at and then redesign them and put them and then go back to the states with what we've worked.
What we're given to understand,
but we do
sir,
want to finish this.
By when would you hope to get a decision on this front, sir?
I hope, I can't commit to a time because processes take time in the government, but maybe within a month.
Within a month.
But in any case, Shireen, do remember that all of this is in preparation for the Kharif season.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's what the commitment is given by the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. So we will try and do it as soon as possible and then roll them out perhaps for a couple or a few Rabi season crops.
Okay.
Because the arrivals have already started.
Yes.
But nonetheless, this is all in preparation for the Kharif season, and therefore we have time to refine these and to pilot these as we go forward.
Okay, Mr. Kumar, I want to ask you now, sir, because the feedback that we're getting is that states are worried about their finances as well and don't want any additional burden on state finances, and hence they believe that the MSP formula should be worked out in such a way that the centre picks up at least 50% of the MSP-related loss. Was there a discussion there? What can we expect on that front in terms of the ratio?
As you can expect, the fiscal burden is a major concern for all the state governments, as is also for the central government. So there was a whole lot of discussion on this. There was a large number of suggestions on this. I can't tell you as to which way we are going, because each scheme has a different combination, a different formula for the costs to be borne by the centre and for the states. For a large part, though, which is, I can tell you this much, that the centre is willing to bear the entire cost up to a point. Now, what is that point is something that we will determine, but the centre, realizing its responsibility, is going to be prepared to do that, but only up to a point. And the second thing is that we can also be offering lower cost funds for the states to build a corpus through which they can execute some of these schemes, like the market assurance scheme. So, all of those things have been discussed thoroughly.
Okay.
That's what, as you would expect, the states had their views, but we will take them on board and then go forward.
When is the next meeting, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, with states on the MSP issue?
Not clear. We haven't decided it. We don't know whether another meeting is required.
Okay.
If so, we will do it as soon as possible. If so.
Okay. Let me then ask you about another issue, sir, and I'll ask you this in your capacity as a trade economist. There is a possibility of a global trade war, and India has, of course, made its position known now as far as the tariffs imposed by the US are concerned. But people are also wondering about the U-turn that India seems to have taken when it comes to customs duties. The Niti Aayog, in its document, had suggested 7%. We've now gone and hiked duties on 50-odd items in the budget. So, A, your view on the tariff war that's been started now by the US and its impact on India, and B, I want you to also comment on the suggestions that have come in, for instance, from somebody like Sajjan Jindal, saying that India should take a leaf out of President Trump's playbook and do exactly the same.
Yeah, so the first thing, Shireen, is that my avatar as a trade economist ended the day I took over here in Niti Aayog, so I will, of course, not be able to tell you from that perspective. But having said that, it's very clear that tariff wars and new forms of protectionism, etc., are not the right way to go forward. This is history is replete with all these examples. So I wish the US the very best, and I hope this will not lead to a all-out trade war or tariff war, as it were, which can only do us harm. But on the Indian side, you had heard the Prime Minister speaking at Davos, and which is that we are in favor of globalization and liberal economic order.
So then how do you, what would your response be to somebody like Sajjan Jindal, who is saying that India should do what the US is doing when it comes to the steel sector, for instance, specifically?
Very far from me, very sort of immodest of me to be commenting on a industrial doyen like Sajjan Jindal. So I'll just hold my brief for the moment.
Okay, but you believe that India should continue to remain open, and is your fear that if for instance, there seems to be a watering down when it comes to President Trump's own tariff order, do you believe that this could lead to a full-blown trade war, or do you think that this is going to be a skirmish?
I hope not. I just hope not. I just hope not, and I hope better sense will prevail. because the world can hardly afford, in these very turbulent technology times, in this world of great disruptions, we can hardly afford a full-fledged, a full-blown tariff war among the major trade partners. The good thing about India is that, with 1.6% of share in manufacturing trade and 2% combined in trade and services, we are not yet so dependent on external demand.
Right.
So therefore, we may remain in some sense, protected, and because we are dependent on our domestic consumption demand for growth and investment demand. So luckily, we might be spared the bad effects of this.
I'll end then by going back to the MSP issue, sir. On the basis of the discussion that you've had with states so far and the various options that are being weighed, what is this going to cost the centre, sir?
We're going to work that out. And
ballpark, sir, I'm sure that there is a ballpark that you're working with at this point in time.
Not really, because everything is up in the air, because it will determine entirely on what we decide to go with. And as you can expect, things change very dramatically, depending on what the preferred options are.
Mr. Rajiv Kumar, always a pleasure, sir. Thanks very much for joining us here, the Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog, on the crucial meeting on MSP that took place at the Niti Aayog with state governments. Appreciate you joining us, sir.